Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brian Choper again, and welcome to TBM Radio Show, the Business of Music Radio Show. We are continuing. This is part 2, episode 9, and it is part 2 of our interview with Ralph Magwood of the Palovations and of Susie's Cause. And once again, Ralph, hello, how are you? And say hello to everyone out there in Radio Land.
Yes, hello to everyone out there in Radio Land, and Brian and Lou and Cosby, everyone, just hello, and I'm glad to be back on.
Muted.
I'm excited, and I know we're going to have a wonderful evening.
Of course, we have Lou Durham with us, too.
Yes, Lou Durham's back, and I'm very happy to be here with you all.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very interesting and exciting show tonight.
Yes.
And I just can't wait till we get started.
And why don't you tell them why it's so exciting tonight?
It's going to be exciting because we're going to be discussing with Ralph his upcoming release of a CD called the Vintage CD. Mm-hmm. And there are many songs I will get into as we start talking about this. And there are other recordings that Ralph has that we will be discussing.
Yep.
And we're going to discuss something which is near and dear to Ralph's heart, which is Susie's Cause.
Yep. So basically what excites me about this is that the last show was talking a lot about Ralph because, as I mentioned in episode 8, Ralph is this soft-spoken guy who has done a lot, but you don't realize that until you get to know him and more comes out about him. So we spent a lot of time last episode talking all about that. And now we're getting to some meat and potatoes.
There you go.
Of an album which Lou and I only heard recently, and I was blown away. Lou and I get to hear a lot of artists perform. Some of them we are like okay about. Some of them we are disappointed in. Yeah. You know, you get this. I'd say it's 30% disappointed, 25% okay. And the rest of them, you're surprised that you never heard of them before, okay? Or you're really blessed that they've come to you.
You know, a lot of times, if a person talks about how good they are, and a person talks about how good their product is,
then usually they're not good.
Usually they're not good. Now, you know, we've done some work with Ralph, and we didn't even realize that he could blow you away with his voice.
Yes, he can sing, but that took us weeks and weeks to figure out. Yes.
Because Ralph is soft-spoken, and he just is humble.
Yes. Ralph, when you get into that, you know, it's an interesting question about this in my mind as a musician. A lot of good artists, it's like when I'm drumming, I almost take it for granted that I do it. But I know that I was blessed with the ability to do it. Where I was going with this was Lou. You know, we have Ralph back, and the first episode episode 8 talked about, part 1 talked about Ralph and his biography, his bringing up, and the fact that he even played and performed with some of the people you knew.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
So you've not only known.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here.
You've not only known Ralph for a while too,
Sure.
but you're still learning about Ralph.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's
right.
where I was going with this. That you're always learning about Ralph, and so now we're talking about his music, and I think that it would be first interesting to.
Well, you said we just recently heard this CD, and
Yes.
you know, we went out to lunch. We had a lunch meeting with Ralph.
Yes.
And we went out to Ralph's car, and he said, "Let me show you."
And the meeting was not
ready.
the meeting was not about the CD.
Oh no, not
the meeting
at
was
all.
just to talk. And then he said, "Hey, I have the CD I'd like to show you," in a soft-spoken, nonchalant way. And we go out to sit in his car, and we get blown away, literally blown away by this music.
That's right.
You know, in fact, let's go ahead and let people hear what we're talking about. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So, the CD is called the Vintage CD, isn't that right, Ralph?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, if there was, I mean, I like all the tracks on there. I don't always, like that on an album. I think the last time I liked all the tracks on an album was Dixie Chicks.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, seriously, everything they did was great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that's not always true today. So, of the tracks on the Vintage CD, what do you think is your favorite one? Or am I putting you on the spot?
Oh no. My favorite one is "Everything Must Change."
Ah.
That's the favorite one on there. Now that's from a vocal standpoint. Everything must change.
Okay.
From a musical standpoint, what's going on?
Yes.
Because it just changes, and it's got a lot of things going on in it,
Okay.
from the pianist to the saxophonist.
Okay. So
Yeah, so those are my favorites.
So let's go ahead for a second. All right, let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of Everything Must Change.
And the wounded heart must heal. Never much too soon. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. The young becomes the old. And mysteries do unfold. That's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many.
So we're back, and what did you what makes this one of your favorite tracks, Ralph? Tell us about what made you how did you conceive this music, and what made you put that down?
Well, one of the things about Everything Must Change is when I first heard it, it just, to me, it was really relative to life. Mm-hmm. You know, once when I was actually studying philosophy in college, and one of the philosophers, I think her name was Pyro. She was a skeptic, but in reading her philosophical bent, basically she just said everything changes constantly, so nothing is certain, or nothing is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's sort of like everything must change, and that's the way I look at life. You start off as a young kid, performing and singing, and as you grow older, your voice change, the music changes, your understanding about life. Everything just changes, and that was just such a favorite song for my career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I heard it, I said, "Hey, that's me." Mm-hmm. You know, that's life. Mm-hmm. It's nothing I cannot relate that song to.
You know, Ralph,
so that was from a vocal standpoint.
Ralph, the first time I ever heard Everything Must Change was George Benson singing it back in the, I guess maybe in the late 70s. That probably was. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember who composed that song. I think the last name was Bernhardt. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually the composer. I'll get you the exact composer in a minute. But
'cause I'd never heard it before.
I heard it from Luther Ingram.
Oh.
That's where I heard everything.
Luther Ingram from Camden, New
Okay,
Jersey.
and
Yes.
Yes, that's where I heard it from. And Luther had done such a wonderful, wonderful job on it that I really wanted to do it. And then I went in and started my research, and I found out it was a lot of great artists that did it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a wonderful renditions that they're out there that you can go in and listen to, and it's just a song that it never fails when I'm with an audience, that if I do that, the audience embraces it, and they get the true feeling that I get out of it when I'm singing.
That's true. And that has to do with something I think you and I nonchalantly were talking about just recently, about how the lyric of a song is what makes you emulate what the composer wants. I mean, if you really study
Yes.
the meaning of what you're doing, it changes everything.
It was Lou who recently got into a conversation with me about the lyrics. As a drummer, I had never focused on the lyrics. I had always focused on the texture of the song and the rhythm and the heart of the song, and because my job was to bring that alive. Okay. And,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, when Lou starts, and for that reason, I wasn't always. I knew all of the instrumentation of the song, but I would never. For many of the songs in my life that I've performed, I don't know the lyrics. I had not paid attention. It wasn't in my head to do. I was focused on everything else. And Lou recently convinced me. I realize the light now that the lyrics allow you to also understand the heart of what and soul of the message when there is one. When there is one, you know, some of these songs don't have that.
A message.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but those that do, it's relevant to keep that in mind. I know by bringing in the Frank Sinatra band, that's more than true. That sometimes the lyrics are what you remember more than the melody, and the
One
lyrics
for my
bring the
baby.
melody back.
I mean,
Oh yeah, for once in my life.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
you know.
I mean,
Sure.
but so that changed me in that with that conversation with Lou. So now I'm understanding that. Before it was like whatever, you know, it's about the music.
A lot of times,
Yes. And
a lot of times now, Ralph, and you probably will agree with this. You take the old songs, you go back and you play the songs from what young people say now, back in the day. You know, okay, so you take an old song. You could take an old stylistic song, and you could sit down and you check out the lyrics. You know where it's coming from, and you just sort of like create a new texture or a new treatment of the song. And you can make something completely different sounding than the original thing, and maybe even expressing it differently, you know, than the original. Because you know, back in those days, the R&B stuff was all about a slow dance, you know, because everything was a party music. Basically.
it was about the in the basement, you know.
There you go.
Yeah, and that was sort of like you know, those in that era, your concentration was on that type of mood and that type of feeling and those expressions.
Sure.
And for me, it was just right on time because it was in my younger years. And in those years, that's when you go out and you start looking at girls and trying to get a girlfriend and all of those kind of things. So the songs that, as a singer, because I started singing early and performing early as a singer, most of the songs that I did kind of put me in the kind of core mode that my life was going through at the time, you know. So
Sure.
when I was when I would watch TV, I'd try to find the best artists that were out there doing the things that made my age group really, really move, as well as I would sit down with my mother and watch people like Mahalia Jackson and that kind of stuff. So, but it was always traveling to the next level for me and understanding what my life experiences were all about and what kind of music made it complete. It was just like when the Beatles came on. When the Beatles came on, I knew every song. I sang every song, you know, and my life was moving in those directions that the lyrics were talking about and the things that were going on in the music. That's what my life was going on in my life. And so when I take a song like Everything Must Change, believe me, there was a time that when that song entered into my life, it impacted my life because whatever was going on at that time, it was just so relative to it. And when I pick up songs for my repertoire, they come like that. I don't just go out looking for them and trying to find them. They come to me, especially, and I try to find the best artist. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a great artist that can deliver a great song to me. Once I can get the interpretation and understand what the writer is actually trying to deliver.
That's true.
And to go back, Lou, to give you the author of Everything Must Change, his name was Igner, and maybe I may not be saying it correctly, but it's Igher.
Yeah, I think you did pronounce it correctly. Yes, Igner.
Yes, Igner Bernard. And that's who wrote it, right? So, it's just so wonderful to be able to do that music, to go in the studio and then produce it, from just the keyboards out to the strings, to the horn sections, to the bringing in the saxophonists and all of that, because the whole time it's just thinking about placement, because I just believe that every note has its place in the music.
That's true.
And placement to me is very, very important. So
we learned all these things when we were young. I mean, when we were young, we learned all these things from the people we listened to. The Beatles.
We're out of time in the segment.
So sad.
Yeah.
So we're gonna come back in just a minute for our second of 3 segments here on the Business of Music Radio Show, TBM Radio Show. Don't forget about us, and we'll be back in just a minute where we'll talk more about other songs of Ralph Magwood, and we'll also bring up and he'll explain what he's doing with Susie's Cause and what that is. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Business of Music Radio Show, tbmradioshow.com. We just ended our last segment talking to Ralph Magwood about his one of his favorite tracks on his new CD to come out, the Vintage CD, and we got interrupted because we ran out of time. But I wanted to ask him about What's Going On, which is another track from that same album, which I love, and I think that he, I guess he does too. And let's ask Ralph what brought that on to you to cover that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. The first thing is that Marvin Gaye was one of my mentors. Mm-hmm. And when it came to vocalists, Marvin Gaye had the kind of style that I admired in a vocalist, and he didn't have to do a whole lot on stage to command his audience. Mm-hmm. And when he did that selection, What's Going On, of course, that was wartime. That was
Vietnam.
That was Vietnam.
I didn't know
type stuff. And
I did not. Okay. I did not know that history. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so back then, those songs were
almost protest songs.
What's going on meant what's going on.
What's going on?
Now you see the point of the lyrics being so
important. There you go. Yeah.
Let's take a second. Let's take a second. Hold your thought, Ralph, and let's take a second and listen to a segment of that. A lot of people already know that tune, but let's take a second and come right back after this, and Ralph can continue where he left off after we know everyone has heard
What's Going On.
What's Going On.
Yeah.
You gotta find a way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bring some love in here today.
Okay.
Yep, that's what it was.
Mother,
This is the
Too many of them crying.
the sweetest protest song I've ever heard.
Come back with that, and then he can talk. You come back with that, and then
Yeah.
Ralph will talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, because we're going to use his version. We're going
Right.
to use his version, not
Yeah,
that version.
not
So-
that
So
version.
go ahead and Lou.
So, Ralph, we were talking earlier about lyrics making the song. When What's
Yes.
Going On came
Mhm.
out, I guess I was a sophomore in high school. And I was scared to death that I was going to graduate from high school and be drafted into Vietnam. And when the draft came up,
Yes,
and
and
I had to go and I had to sign up like every young man did. And I sat there in front of the television set and I watched the draft lottery come up, and they pulled my birthday to 32nd pull, Ralph. And back then they would
Yep.
take up to 260, 260
Yes.
days out of the
Yes,
year.
they would.
So I
Yep.
I
Yes, they
graduated
would.
from high school, and my draft card came, and it said 1A. And back then, the draft card 1A meant that you were going, And
You will go.
and
Yes,
then,
it did.
God bless President Nixon. He put a freeze on the draft, and my card was changed to 1H.
Yes.
What does 1H mean?
Okay.
One
Ah.
hold. And I thought for sure,
Yes.
sure that I would never ever join the military. I was 18 years old, and when I was 31, I started a 23-year Army career as a pianist.
Right, which we've talked
which
about.
We've talked about in the past.
Episode 6 or whatever it was.
But it's funny how Ralph, one thing happens in your life,
Yeah.
and everything must change. Everything changes about the way you
Everything
think,
must change.
and what your
Sure.
priorities are.
Sure.
No, I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be. Well, that's
Well,
heavy.
no, well,
that's
well,
heavy.
but
That's
that's
heavy.
what-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good stuff, Lou. But when it comes to what's going on, Marvin Gaye was not just telling the story and trying to get people to understand that there was just too much happening that wasn't right in the world.
Period.
But he was also, he was also an image that the community loved. He was well loved as a performer because he brought us all the way up from back in the years when it was he and Tammy Terrell, and but when we got to What's Going On, most of the artists they became I guess what you might call politically inclined, and what they wrote was really songs of redemption, kind of trying to get the world straight songs. And
That's right.
Marvin was just he was just one of my idols when it came to his ability to do it smoothly and silky.
Some guys did protest songs a
thank-
little edgy, but you're right, Marvin Gaye.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his was real silky and smooth, and it would make you dance, but then it would also make you listen.
that's right.
And
So
that's
What year was
what
this?
What's Going On does for me.
What's Going On was like 1971, I think.
Yeah, somewhere close around
So
that.
he was part of
I
the
could get
protest
the
movement?
exact time. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just the protest movement. He was definitely involved in it, but he was his music was protest at that time. Most of your artists had to deliver some type of political, what would you call it, opinion in their music. If you were any artist of any statue back then that people were listening to, you had to, at that time, from 60 into the 60s up to the early 70s, you had to deliver something political
It's true.
to let people know where you stood.
Marvin Gaye not only was talking about Vietnam, but he was also talking about the political climate within our country coming out of the 60s with the Great Society of President Johnson, and the fact that everything was changing in our country. And, I mean, you and I both, Ralph, remember clearly as a bell all the riots and the burning of the cities in Newark and all of the terrible, terrible things that
Sure.
happened in the civil rights movement. And, you know, I mean, music
Yeah.
was politically fired not just because of Vietnam, but because of the issues in our own
It
country
was-
here, you know?
Got it.
Yes, it was. It was definitely, and you weren't really listened to much at some time or another if you weren't saying something about what was going on.
That's right.
Okay.
If your music wasn't saying something about what was going on, you weren't on the charts. I would guarantee you that you weren't making the charts. And if you were, you were making it in a way that
You were
people
making it on
understood
that
after a while. But
bubblegum circuit. Do you remember the bubblegum circuit of music, Ralph? I mean,
yes,
the songs that made no
Yes,
sense
yes, I do.
whatsoever, you know, aimed at the very young
Yes.
young teens and people like that.
Right.
You know, that was
Right.
like frivolous,
Right.
light, kind of like popcorn music. you
Now,
know.
you're talking a lot about the
Sure.
thought that went into a song and the artist, not just the song itself. And you had a first album that I think was called like Just Passing By, and then you had a second album, a Closer Walk, and then Old Time Religion, and all these things that were gospel, right?
yeah, they were gospel.
Okay, now
And one of the reasons why,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
one of the reasons why I'm really now anxious about releasing the vintage CD is because I've actually held it back for about 3 albums. It was finished in 2006. It was done, and I held it back, and I'm ready to release it now because of those 3 record albums it's 3 record albums that you mentioned. The first one, Just Passing By, was my solo CD.
Okay.
And basically, just what it says, Just Passing By, that's what I was doing. I considered myself to be a person that, it came from a Psalms 90. And it basically was where it says, teach us to number our days that we might apply our hearts to them. Basically, that is the basic theme to it. And that's where Just Passing By kind of came from.
The reason why I bring that up is because, first of all, it seems like you don't just pick songs, but you pick songs for the meaning of them, and it's your heart and soul kind of thing as you're deciding what to do, which isn't what I see just every singer or artist do. And that's why I bring them back, because, you know, if your roots are gospel. What age were you? What age did you first sing? What age were you when you were first singing? You said you started singing at an early age. What age was it?
Well, I actually, I started singing when I heard other people singing, but the first song that I learned, believe it or not, it was it was taught to me by a gentleman who was a piano player who lived like a few doors from me, and I would hear the piano. I was 5. I would hear the piano, and when I had the chance to go out on the porch, I would try to see if I could get closer to his door and listen to what he was playing. And the first song that I actually learned was "Wake Up, a Little Susie, Wake Up."
The Everly Brothers, yeah.
It's
Yes, the Everly
interesting
Brothers.
that you say that you started singing when you first heard singing, and I started drumming when I first heard drumming.
Yes.
You know, it's like I heard drumming.
Yes.
My family did not listen to rock and roll in the house, and did not listen to the blues, and did not listen to the jazz in the house. They listened to classical and opera. And so when I went over to, when I was 5 or 6, I went over to a friend's house, and the first music that I heard was from Springsteen. And all of a sudden I heard drums, and thought that's what I want to do. I mean, I heard Max Weinberg, and you know, playing that straight beat, and that's when I first realized I was interested in this, and had to figure out how to convince my parents to let me do it when they didn't want to hear that music in the house. So I listened to it everywhere else, and it's like, it feels like I'm not the only one who has that experience.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to listen to rock and roll.
Sure.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No. But see, all I could really listen to was rock and roll and gospel. You see,
Okay.
because I told you, like I said in the first segment that we did, my uncle played with Muddy Waters,
Right.
and he played guitar, man, and that's what I would hear when I went to that house. It'd be about 3 or 4 guys, his friends, and they'd be sitting there playing the blues
Right.
and playing the honky tonk and all of that. And my mother, of course, being a gospel singer, she would just sing around the house. So, you know, it just it became a part of me anyhow. And the question that you asked earlier, I think it was, did it come easy, or, you know, how did it,
Right.
you know, how does it come to me? It comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it came easy as a young kid because I had always had good pitch and understanding about what was happening. I could remember phrases and notes and those kind of things. And
but you see, Ralph,
the first thing
you like a lot of artists just say it's easy, but at the same time, that's just because you had it. For most people, it's not easy, and it's a struggle, and it's a lot of work.
Yes, but I respect them, those people that it's not easy for, though, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you why. Because with an educator background, one of the things that I found in the course of my life and up to this point is that I never worked as hard sometime as I should have. Mm-hmm. You see, I think when people are extremely gifted sometimes, and things do in fact come easy, the challenge is not there in oftentimes. And so I'm at this point in my life where I'm still looking for challenge, and when things come easy, you take them for granted sometimes.
Yes.
And then finally you get to a point where you say, okay, you got to stop taking this for granted, because it really, you could be a much further ahead, and you could aspire to other levels if you go in and open up and work just a bit harder. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like you, when you ask that question, that's what you brought to my mind. I said, well, yeah, but sometimes I wish it wasn't so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Ralph,
Ralph, because I take it for granted too.
Go ahead,
I think it's easy.
I also, this was very easy for me.
Yep.
When I was growing up.
Me too.
And I've come to learn that I've come to learn now. I mean, I took for granted what I could do, and I realize now that, you know, there's not that many humans on this earth that can do this artistic thing that we all do at a certain level.
Right.
And to push yourself to the next level means that you are willing to take that chance. And Brian recently said something to me about Steve Harvey, the host on television, who had said that you know, you're standing on a cliff and you have a choice. You can stay there and not move, or you can just jump off and go for it.
And your parachute will open if you've got it prepared.
Yeah, and I think he's right.
Yes,
I think that's the
But
answer.
a lot of people are afraid to take that jump, even though they have a parachute. Okay, and therefore they stay where they are and they don't move, and that's the way it is, and you can't change them because they're just not ready for it, and they're never ready for it.
Right. And just to give you a little background on my thought too, as well with that, you know, the three record albums I did, and for some listeners, the 3 CDs that I did prior to releasing this vintage CD, I did those one each year. It took me 1 year for each one, and that's really quite an accomplishment when it comes to compilation and for the industry. And I'm saying the quality. I try to have the best quality I can have, But the people that I was pushing to get the product done, to get those 3 projects done, by the time we got to the end of the 3rd project, most of the people were worn out and ready to sit down and say, okay, that's enough. So at the same time, I'm saying that I wish it didn't come so easy. I'm not saying that I'm not a hard worker.
No, we're talking about the inherent talents people have, not the music business. The music business is hard. So that's what we're talking about. We're out of time in this segment, so we just have to go, and I let it go long because you were talking, and so it's saying such interesting things, Ralph. But we'll be right back. TBMRadioshow.com, thebusinessofmusicradioshow.com. We're going to come right back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about his music, and then you're going to talk about Susie's Cause, and we're going to learn all about that. Be back in a minute.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for our 3rd segment of Episode 9, The Business of Music Radio Show, tbmradioshow.com. For those of you who are just coming into this, I encourage you to listen to our first and second segments. And again, if everyone is just catching in for the first time, Lou Durham, music director for the
Big
company.
Shot Records.
Yes, and Ralph Magwood. Say hello again, Ralph.
Yes, hello, everyone.
Yep.
Hello.
And
how's everybody?
And Ralph is not just a singer and performer, but he also works with Susie's Cause. And so what I wanted to do quickly here, because we haven't talked about Susie's Cause at all, and here we are in the 3rd segment. What I wanted to do real quick was again, to give people an idea of you and your music. Let's go real quick, and let's listen to Somebody's Watching You. Let's listen to a piece of that.
Watching you, cousins watching you, auntie is watching you, everybody's watching you, sisters watching you, nieces watching you, grandma is watching you, everybody's watching you, somebody's watching you, you gotta let God like somebody, somebody's watching you, you gotta let God like somebody, come to know somebody, somebody's watching you, you gotta let God like somebody, come to know him because somebody's watching you, you gotta let God.
I wanted everyone to hear a little bit of that to understand, again, Ralph's roots. Ralph, do you have any comment on that real quick? Because I want to go into the new album and explain that. So it's just interesting to hear these different...
Okay, just briefly, that was Just Passing By, and somebody's watching you. I actually wrote that one based on the fact that you have to conduct yourself in the proper manner because you never know who's watching you, and you don't want to be a stumbling block to anyone. When you're a stumbling block, then that's when it's a problem.
A good message, especially today. So then let's jump ahead to what year was For Once in My Life. What year did you record that?
I recorded probably like 2004.
Okay. Gotcha. So let's go ahead and hear a segment of that and come back on the other side.
Once unafraid, I can go where life leads me. Somehow I know I'll be strong. Once I can touch what my heart used to dream of, long before I knew. Someone warm like you would make my dreams.
So now that everyone has had a taste of that tune, tell us a little bit about what went on in your mind to choose that, and then we're going to talk about Susie's Cause, and we're going to put this whole picture together.
Well, for once in my life, that's really a song that I've dedicated to my wife, and the reason being is because I did find someone that needed me as much as I needed them, and everything, all the lyric in the song just relates to our relationship, and so it's. It just had that meaning, and I don't know much more I can say except for once in my life, I found someone who really needs me as well.
Got it. So, how can people pick this up? How can people find this? What is the plan or the route for that?
Okay, well, the marketing plan will be on digital, and that's on all of the digital outlets, Spotify and Amazon, everywhere you can pick up a digital copy. As well, it would be in the mom and pop stores. Now, there's not many left, but all of the mom and pop stores, and that's on the East Coast and up through and out to Kentucky, Louisville, up to Ohio, Canton, Ohio, and down to Nashville. You'll be able to pick it up in all the mom and pop stores.
Okay.
And of course, it'll be on all radio. And you can call. You can call and go online to Ralph Magwood.com, and you can purchase it there as well.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. So now let's get into Susie's Cause, and I know this is a proud thing for you. It's a big part of your life, and why don't you go? And I'm going to give you the floor here to explain what you've done, what your involvement, what Susie's Cause is, and I'm sure you've explained this to so many people that you don't need any more of an introduction. I'm sure. I'm just looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Sure. So basically, for the listening audience, I would say that Susie's Cause is a colorectal cancer foundation. Its name basically is the Susan Cohan Colon Cancer Foundation, Inc., and better known, or shall we say, it is called Susie's Cause. The mission of Susie's Cause is to work to eliminate colon cancer as a life-threatening disease through the development and dissemination of educational programs focused on prevention, early screening, and detection, therapeutic intervention, and to fund critical research. That's what the mission of Susie's Cause is. Susie's Cause is it was founded by Mr. David Cohan in 2005, and the reason why it was founded and conceived was because David Cohan's daughter, Susan, died of colon cancer. And when she passed away, before passing away, she asked her father, David, to create a foundation that would educate people early, and so that they would go out and get screened and possibly detect the polyps and the things that give you signs that you may have a problem soon, because she died at an early age, and a lot of people think you have to wait to be 50 years old to do so. So Susie's Cause has been functioning and operating since 2005, and they have their initiatives. They give colon cancer outreach festivals throughout the country. They have what's called a 10-city tour, in which they tour cities like L.A., Detroit, Louisville, Kentucky, New York, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., various 10 cities we go to. And what we do is we educate the underserved community. We partner with the hospital. The hospital brings out all of the hospital components, the medical components and education. And then what I do as a performer and an entertainer is I find artists to come out and perform so that we can attract the different groups and demographics that are in that particular area. And we put on a concert for about 4 hours while the hospital educates our customers and those people about colorectal cancer and the fact that early screening and detection can save your life. That is the epitome of our mission. Early screening and detection can save your life. We also do fundraisers such as a gala. We do an annual gala every year in which Big Shot Records participated this year. They brought out the group Nexus and performed with a group called the Palovations, in which we just had a wonderful time. And I think they did well with raising funds to keep this initiative going on for the rest of this year and next year. We also have a Bluegrass Festival. Basically, the Bluegrass Festival is going to be held in September the 9th this year, 2017, out at Organ Ridge Park in Cockeysville. And we're going to have the Grammy Award-winning Mark O'Connor's, and we're going to be featuring Mark O'Connor's band. There's artists such as Sarah Hall, John Sebastian, and the Stray Birds. That festival every year, we give that festival also to fund the initiative, the 10-city initiative, and all of the events and so forth that Susie's Cause is involved with. And then finally, we have a 5K run, and the 5K run, and we have people come and families come out, and we do fundraisers in that manner as well. I could go on. We have several other events, but just to let you know, Susie's Cause is at the bottom, and it's in my heart, because it's nothing like educating people about a disease that no one wants to talk about. It's a silent killer. People stay at home and just die from colorectal cancer, and we want to make it now a disease that everybody knows about, and the fact that they can cure it if it's found early. So that's like my pet mission for my life, and I have attached my music to it. And that's I guess what we could call Susie's Cause in a nutshell.
Got it. Do they know how many people they've helped save out of this, or is that just yes, we have to keep statistics as well. Last year, we saw over 17,000 people at our festival. And I think we had approximately somewhere close to 50 people who were screened, and they saw that they had possible problems. They had polyps and those kind of things. And I think we saved several lives last year. I can't give you a good hard number on the lives,
but I know we had at least 50 people that we found had problems when they were screened, and it was just great. I mean, we look at it out of 17,000. If we got one, if we found one person, that's still saving a life.
And Ralph, doing this outreach and educating these people to know what to look for, not only are you helping them, but you're educating them, and they're talking to their friends who are talking to their friends, and it becomes exponential. And so people learn, and they start to pay attention, and they get tested. And so it is impossible to know how many people's lives you are touching and helping to save, because you don't know how many people are pyramiding on top of the hard work that the foundation does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's what our hopes are.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you're putting in tandem the music and the cause together.
Yes,
to work this.
And a lot of that came from the founder, David Cohen, because David, he was a promoter. He was a big promoter in Baltimore City, and he would bring in the Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell, Moms Mabley. He brought in all the big talent in Baltimore. He and a very well-known disc jockey, Rockin' Robin, out of Baltimore. And so that component, that entertainment and musical component to a festival, some malls we go into and they don't understand it until after we put the festival on. And I strive very, very hard to get people to understand it's really not about the music. It's about saving lives. But music, there's nothing better than music that can bring people together. And so, we got to walk that thin line. It's a thin line that you walk on. But when people get a chance to come and get educated, it's just a very, very, very nice arrangement. They have a good time. They hear some good music, and they get well educated about their health, because it's not just colon cancer we talk about. We talk about healthy lifestyles, healthy eating,
healthy lifestyle,
fitness. Everything is involved. And with fitness, music is a very, very big component to fitness. Your different fitness organizations, they use music. They use music to do their exercises and dances and so forth. So all of these things mix together and make for good health and a good life for our community.
So, Ralph, I really appreciate all the hard work that you have done with this foundation, and I hope that many, many lives are saved and that many people are educated. And I think we're coming to the close of our third segment.
Yep, I wanted to make sure that we got this in because we're supporters.
So important.
It's so important for the public to know about what's going on. So I wanted to give a large amount of time to this. And thank you, Ralph. We're out of time, but yay, because I promised you that I would get this in, and we did. So thank you very much, Ralph. We learned about the music, and we learned about you and the psychology and how you think. And how all this is put together. I look forward to hearing more of the music and more support of the Susie's cause. And for everyone, until next time, the Business of Music Radio Show, tbmradioshow.com. We'll see you next time for episode 10.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.